Before I start this video, it is kind request to subscribe Movie Crackle. At the beginning of the story, it is told that 5 years after an asteroid collided with Earth, 75% of the world's population was wiped out. Fragments of the asteroid still remained in the environment. The air became polluted, and the remaining radiation was still showing its effects. Things like earthquakes and storms became common on Earth. Humans had no choice but to live in bunkers. Now we see a man named John, who lives with his family in a bunker in Greenland. He works as an engineer, but is also a scout, which means he has to wear a special suit and occasionally go outside the bunker to check on the world's conditions. One day, he saw a crack open in the ground and realized these cracks were slowly getting bigger. Then John went to the beach and saw some lifeboats and a wrecked ship there. First, he checked every lifeboat, but didn't find anything useful in any of them. So then he went inside the ship, and there he found some useful items which he kept with him. Going further inside, he saw many corpses. While searching for things, John also found a notebook with a beautiful flower placed inside it. John kept that notebook with him as well. At that same moment, he received a warning on the radio from the bunker that a very dangerous storm was approaching. John started running with all his might because the storm was chasing him at great speed. Fortunately, John jumped over the gate and got inside the bunker just in time, closing the gate before the storm could enter. After saving himself, John sat there in shock. He started thinking about how close he had been to death. After this, John decided to meet with his therapist and started talking about the world's strange condition. The therapist said everyone is in the same state. People are just pretending that everything is fine. Therefore, he told John, why worry? You have control over your life. Spend as much time as possible with your family. Live freely. Meanwhile, John's wife, Allison, was sitting in another bunker having a meeting with the leaders, where everyone was discussing that food and supplies were starting to run out. Just then, Allison received a message saying that John had returned safely. In that same meeting, Dr. Amina shared information she had received from scientists in other bunkers. It was about the craters created by the asteroid. The size and depth of these craters would protect them from storms, and it was possible that the toxic air wouldn't affect them much either. Therefore, that place could be good for living. But Adam reminded them that these craters are in France, and there is ongoing war throughout Europe. Just then, suddenly an earthquake hit and the entire bunker started shaking. But everyone just waited for the earthquake to stop and then got back to work as if this were completely normal. Someone in the meeting said these earthquakes are getting stronger. Then Allison reminded everyone that there are still some people trapped outside. We have to help them too. But Adam started saying that we don't have enough supplies to accommodate more people, and also they might bring in unknown diseases. Therefore, this matter should be dropped. But Allison said a vote will determine what people want. Hands were raised, and most people supported Allison. Therefore, it was decided that a vehicle that travels on ice would be sent out tomorrow. Later, when John was fixing the bunker's pipes, Allison saw their son Nathan outside. She got very angry, saying, "You'll get sick, come inside quickly." Inside their room, Nathan was using a flashlight to shine light through holes he had made in his bedsheet, creating stars on the wall above, making him feel like he was looking at the sky. The next day, John saw some cracks on the bunker's walls. Meanwhile, a vehicle sent from the bunker went out and started returning after rescuing some helpless people. While returning, the team called the bunker and asked permission for another round because due to lack of space, they had left some people behind. But Adam immediately refused, reminding them that we don't have enough space or food, man. You're just collecting people. At that same moment, another earthquake hit and contact with the vehicle was lost. The bunker began shaking even more violently than before, causing people and supplies to fall, and then suddenly many parts of the ceiling collapsed badly, due to which many people got trapped and also suffered serious injuries. Some stones fell on John's head, and the dust worsened his cough that had been going on for days. But one of his friends helped him get out of there. Then all the alarms went off and the bunker started shaking again. A sound of an explosion came from some distance away. John ran toward the office to save Allison. Allison was badly injured. John quickly helped her up, and both set out to find their son. Both found Nathan in his room wearing a mask, but he was still having difficulty breathing. John told his family to pack their belongings as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, I'll get more masks so they can leave this bunker. Everyone was running around in panic, but John still reached the lockers and got masks. After which Nathan started feeling a little better, and the family prepared to go outside. When the bunker's shaking stopped, the walls also began to break. A distressed crowd gathered on the exit path, but the gate was only half open, and it was impossible to exit through this door. So John took his family toward the back route. Unfortunately, the back route was also destroyed. With no other option, John told his family to crawl forward. Somehow they reached near the door, and John pressed the door button. But due to the heavy machinery, the bunker got even more damaged. But at least they reached outside safely. Outside, there was also a massive stampede. When explosions of water started happening in the ground, both lost sight of Nathan and ran back to find him. They saw Nathan helping Amina, who had fallen. They also took Amina with them and started running toward the beach. Here, the remaining people were trying to save their lives by getting onto boats. So many people gathered that one boat capsized, after which, all those people fell into the water. Some desperate and helpless people took advantage of this opportunity and tried to snatch Adam's mask. So Allison and John ran to save him. But then a man pounced on John and snatched his mask. Yet somehow, they managed to pull Adam to the shore. Now only one boat remained, so John started showing his family and some people how to quickly get on it. Allison wanted to save as many people as they could, but the captain shouted that it would be too heavy, the boat would sink. So helplessly, they had to close the door in people's faces. People standing outside clung to the boat until it started moving. At that same moment, a huge wave appeared and crashed into the shore, sweeping those people away with it. John's boat also tossed violently in that wave, but the captain somehow managed to keep the boat steady, and they continued moving forward safely. A little later, John used a device to confirm that the air quality here was safe. Therefore, they could remove their masks. Then everyone sat and started discussing where to go, and since Iceland was finished, they decided their nearest destination was England. A few hours later, the boat stopped working, but then John checked the engine and fixed it, allowing them to continue their journey. When night fell, Nathan was very happy because he finally got to see the stars. A few days later, the boat stopped again because it had run out of fuel. Now with no options left, they left the boat to the mercy of the sea waves, hoping they would take them somewhere. After a very long wait, the boat finally reached land. Everyone looked outside and were astonished when they realized they were in Liverpool. John confirmed with his device that the air here was clean, but now they needed to find a place to live as soon as possible. However, when they looked down, they saw that part of the area had sunk underwater. John took an oar and started propelling the boat until it finally hit a dry road. Everyone got off the boat and saw that the city seemed completely deserted. They spotted some people on the road and started following them, eventually reaching a place where people were trying to survive somehow. John noticed that many of them looked sick, therefore, they wouldn't survive much longer. John's group heard screaming sounds. Following the sounds, they saw a crowd. Many people were causing a ruckus outside a bunker, while some soldiers were guarding that bunker. Adam ran toward the gate and started explaining that they were government officials from the Greenland station. "Let us inside." At this, the soldier said, "Show your ID." But only Allison had ID, and she didn't want to go in without her family. Adam started arguing with the soldiers while the crowd grew even angrier. Suddenly, a soldier shot Adam. When another person from the crowd tried to forcefully enter, they were also shot. The soldiers closed the gate and alarms started sounding. At that same moment, a storm approaching in the sky became visible, and the crowd panicked and started running away. Amina and John's family stopped a van and asked the driver to take them to London, but the driver demanded payment, for which John gave him his watch. After which the driver agreed, and the vehicle sped out of the city. In time, they also escaped the storm. Allison was hugging Nathan, comforting him that everything would be okay, while Amina was very sad about Adam. The driver explained that people had become so desperate they would kill anyone for food. A few hours later, the van stopped briefly in the middle of the forest. Then John asked the driver if he knew anything about the situation in France, but the driver said that area is extremely dangerous, and that talk about the asteroid crater having great land, water, everything there seems like a lie to me. Suddenly they heard a strange sound and saw that many asteroid fragments were still falling from the sky. Everyone quickly grabbed hold of trees so they wouldn't be blown away by the wind. But then the driver shouted that the van was everything to him. He ran to save his van. But during this, fragments started hitting the ground, and one of them destroyed both the driver and the van. When this rain of fragments ended, the 4 survivors took whatever bags and useful items they could find from the van and continued their journey on foot. Finally, they reached London and started knocking on the door of a very large building. The door opened, but suddenly a woman named Mackenzie aimed a gun at them. But coincidentally, these people were old friends of Mackenzie. She immediately lowered the gun and let them inside. Then she showed them around the building and explained that this building is a retirement home. Therefore, all the people living here are elderly. Mackenzie told them that I have sealed the entire building, and with the help of some solar panels, a generator runs that keeps the air clean. Everyone ate and drank and started talking a lot. John now asked Mackenzie about those deep craters in France. Mackenzie said, "I've heard rumors, but I don't know if they're true or not." Later, Allison was trying to sleep. But how could she? John was coughing repeatedly in the bathroom. When he looked in the sink, he saw blood. John tried very hard to avoid the topic. But Allison said, "Please tell me the truth." So John finally revealed his secret. He said that a doctor in the bunker had told me that when the bleeding starts, I have only 6 to 8 weeks left to live. Hearing this, Allison was completely shattered. She said, "We'll stay here for 2 months. You can spend your last days in peace." but John said, "I'm not going to die here. I will take you and our son safely to France. After finding you a new home there, I can die in peace." The next day, Mackenzie gave them an old car parked at the retirement home so they could reach their destination safely. She also handed John a gun so he could protect himself and his family. Mackenzie hugged them one last time, and then the four departed from there. A few hours later, as they were passing through the edge of the city, John saw that Nathan looked sad, and they started playing a game together while talking. Just then, a sudden bullet shattered the window and hit Amina directly, killing her instantly. Some men hiding in the bushes kept firing at them continuously, but they didn't aim at the engine because their goal was to steal the car. John immediately took position behind the car and started firing back. As the looters approached, John shot them down one by one. Now only one man was left, but John had run out of bullets. However, Allison had another gun, and she shot the last man before he could harm them. After comforting each other, they dug a pit together and buried Amina. John began saying a prayer as he bid farewell to his friend, which Nathan listened to very attentively. A few hours later, the family reached a large desert-like area. They understood that this place was what used to be the sea between England and France. The water had receded from here, so at least they wouldn't need a boat. Along the way, they came across many shipwrecks. Going a little further, they saw some people. Upon observing, they discovered there was a massive crack in the ground, and they needed to get to the other side of this chasm. To reach there, they would have to cross a dangerous rope bridge. Seeing this, Nathan became very scared and said, "I'm not going over there." Then John, encouraging him, went first. The whole family slowly and very carefully began crossing the rope. When John suddenly had a coughing fit, he nearly slipped, but he quickly steadied himself. Just then, very strong winds started blowing, violently shaking the bridge. But still, everyone managed to hold on somehow. Luckily, the wind soon stopped, and the family continued forward, reaching a rock in the middle. From there, two ladders led to the other side. They had just reached the middle of the ladders when a powerful earthquake suddenly struck. Fortunately, none of the three fell. They were just about to move forward when another earthquake hit. This time, the cliffs on both sides began to crumble. Soon, the rope bridge also broke. Many people fell into the chasm and died. A man on the other ladder got scared seeing this and, in his haste to reach the other side, pushed the men in front of him into the chasm. But then that entire ladder started to slip. So that man jumped and landed on top of Nathan. With that, the other ladder fell into the chasm. The family held onto Nathan while that man slipped and fell toward his death. Nathan's parents helped him climb back up, and somehow they managed to cross the ladder. Now they had no choice but to walk, but no matter how far they walked, only barren land appeared. Then suddenly they heard gunfire and saw a man named Dennis pointing a gun at them, but he lowered his weapon when he realized they weren't looters. He took them straight to his home. Within a short time, John and his family reached France. Dennis was currently living in an old factory, which he powered with a car engine. Dennis introduced them to his daughter Camille and his wife. His wife had been badly affected by radiation. She was in a wheelchair and couldn't speak. During dinner, Dennis learned that John's family wanted to reach the craters formed by the asteroid. He warned them that area would be extremely dangerous. People would be killing each other from all sides to take control of the crater. Meanwhile, Camille took Nathan to her room and started showing him all her cool things. In return, Nathan showed her the sheet he had poked holes in, which, when lit with a flashlight underneath, showed stars in the sky. The next morning, Dennis gave John a map and showed him the safest route. He also mentioned the name of his old friend in the army who now held a high post. He gave John an old photo of himself with his friend so he could prove they knew Dennis. Maybe they would get help. Suddenly, Dennis tearfully made a request to John. "Could you take Camille with you? He wants to take his daughter to that crater himself, but he has to stay here and take care of his wife." John hesitated a bit, but Allison immediately agreed. After this, bidding farewell to her parents, Camille set off with John's family in Dennis's van. After driving for a few hours, Allison noticed the kids were in a bad mood. Therefore, they decided to take a break. Then John played a game with the children, which lifted their spirits a little. Suddenly, they saw some vehicles on the road, and several soldiers surrounded them. Camille mentioned her father's general friend and convinced the soldiers to help them cross the area. By night, they reached a battlefield where the army was fighting some people. A soldier took them from behind so they could pass through the forest without being seen. When an explosion occurred near them, they had to stop. But soon they started moving again, and then, crossing some wires, they reached an even more dangerous area. Now they had to run as fast as possible to avoid bullets and explosions. People were dying everywhere, and then the family saw a man engulfed in flames. Then the soldier accompanying them called the bunker and reported that he had civilians with him, and some other soldiers told them to keep moving forward. They continued to provide cover as much as possible. They all advanced and reached a tunnel prepared for war, where John started coughing badly and almost fell. Passing through the tunnel, they came across many corpses. Finally, they reached a ladder, and the soldier who had accompanied them sent them into the forest, saying just keep walking straight until you find the camp. By morning, they finally reached the military camp. Camille pointed to some mountains that weren't there before, and John calculated that they had come very close to their destination. When they asked a soldier about Dennis's friend, they learned he was dead, and these soldiers now weren't interested in helping them. So John told them that I only have a few days left, brother. I just want to save my family. One man took pity on them and gave them space on his bus. John's family and some other people got on the bus that would take them to their destination. But on the way, the journey stopped due to an explosion. Suddenly, some looters surrounded the bus. A soldier got out to fight them, but the looters shot him immediately. Then a thug also killed the driver and forced everyone to get off the bus. John sent his family out but stayed behind himself so he could pounce on that thug. Hearing the sound, when another thug outside tried to enter, one of the passengers hit him on the head with a stone. Just then, 2 gunshots were heard from inside the bus. John emerged with a gun in his hand, and everyone was happy. But John had also been shot. Everyone got back on the bus. Nathan kept pressure on John's wound while Allison drove. Within a short time, they reached the top of a newly formed mountain, and the family kept moving, supporting John, until they finally saw their destination. All the rumors turned out to be true. This crater formed by the asteroid was an incredibly beautiful place. With fertile land, no pollution. It was a perfect place to start a new life. At that very moment, John fell, and his family surrounded him from all sides, to say goodbye one last time before his death. Everyone wept bitterly at John's death. And finally, Nathan said the same prayer for his father that he had heard before. If you liked the video, please like it. Subscribe to the Movie Crackle. See you in the next video.